On a quiet June morning, Kevin Mengel went about his usual workday, completely unaware that someone was watching him closely, waiting for the right moment to make a move. Nearby sat a bottle of iced tea, a favorite drink he assumed would help him get through the day. But what he didn't know was that this tea held a dark secret, and it wasn't just meant to quench his thirst. What started as a quiet day would soon turn into something unimaginable, a story of betrayal, a twisted romance, and the shocking length someone close to Kevin was willing to go to get what they wanted. Morgan Marie Wixson, later known as Morgan Mengel, was born on September 25, 1975 in Pennsylvania, USA. Details about her early years and personal life are scarce. From what little information is available, it's known that Morgan's relationship with her family faced challenges, especially as she grew into adolescence, adopting a rebellious attitude that her parents disapproved of. Still, the Wixons hoped she would eventually find direction and stability in life. In 1997, fate led Morgan to cross paths with a young man, Kevin Mengel Jr., who was just a year younger than her. Their connection was immediate, and they soon became a couple. Kevin was born on July 2, 1976, in Springfield, Pennsylvania, the oldest of three children of Kevin Mengel Sr. and Kathleen. Known affectionately as Kevin Sr., his father was a respected local businessman, and Kevin grew up in a close-knit family with his siblings, Christopher and Michelle. However, by the time Kevin finished high school in 1995, his parents had amicably divorced, each moving on to new relationships. Kevin Sr. settled in Downingtown with his second wife, and Kathleen remarried Dr. Richard Barton, adopting his last name, and settled in Westchester. The family separation had a deep impact on Kevin, as he valued family above all else. Though he experienced periods of distance from his father, those who knew him described Kevin as ambitious, hard-working, and determined. When he met Morgan, he believed he had found the ideal partner to build the family he'd always dreamed of. Friends recalled that Morgan was initially affectionate and seemed to compliment him well. However, as time passed, Morgan's behavior began to raise concerns, revealing a pattern of deception. One early red flag surfaced when, about a year into their relationship, Morgan attended a family dinner at the Mengels' home with an unexpectedly noticeable belly. When someone asked if she was pregnant, Morgan denied it, claiming she was simply bloated. Yet, just one day later, she gave birth to a baby girl named Mercedes. Even in the hospital, Morgan insisted she hadn't known she was pregnant, despite her family's doubts. Her demeanor lacked the usual excitement of a new mother, which surprised the Mengels, although Kevin was thrilled at becoming a father. Overjoyed, he and Morgan decided to marry soon after their daughter's birth. Following their wedding, Kevin established a landscaping business, with Morgan helping him run it. Their family expanded with two more children, Kevin Jr. and Billy, and Kevin devoted himself to his family, even naming the business with the initials of his children. Although they appeared to be a happy, perfect family, tensions began to surface. Reports suggested that Morgan had been involved with some of Kevin's friends and that he was aware of her infidelities. Heartbroken but unwilling to break up his family, Kevin remained steadfast, hoping to provide a stable home for his children, despite the toll it took on him. In 2009, Morgan left their home on several occasions, staying with her mother but always returning, even as friends described an increasingly turbulent relationship. Kevin's devotion to family extended to reconciling with his father that year, and they grew closer than ever. Even as his marriage became strained, he remained hopeful, valuing unity and stability for his children. By spring 2010, things seemed to be in relative order. That year, a 21-year-old named Stephen Chappelle, known as Steve, joined Kevin's landscaping business. Kevin quickly trusted and valued Steve as a team member, unaware that his presence would alter Kevin's life forever. On June 20th, Father's Day, the Mengels had planned a family picnic where Kevin was looking forward to reuniting with his father after many years. Yet, as time passed and Kevin didn't appear, his family grew anxious. Kathleen received a message from Morgan explaining they wouldn't be attending due to unforeseen circumstances. This puzzled everyone, knowing how much Kevin had anticipated this reunion. Familiar with the couple's dynamics, his family couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss, given Morgan's history of infidelity, financial deceptions, and even arrests for petty theft and bad checks. As worry grew, family members began calling and messaging Kevin, but he didn't respond. Upon piecing together their recent interactions, they realized that no one had seen or heard from him for several days. For Kevin's family, his silence was uncharacteristic and concerning. Close as he was with his mother, he would never go so long without contacting her, leaving them certain that something was very wrong. Concerned family members grew increasingly anxious as Kevin remained unreachable, prompting Kathleen to contact the police and officially report his disappearance. The following Monday, officers visited Kevin in Morgan's apartment, where they encountered Morgan, who seemed calm and unconcerned. She explained to the officers that Kevin had messaged her to say he was fine but needed a break, instructing her to take over the landscaping business temporarily. According to Morgan, Kevin had felt overwhelmed by business pressures and decided to step away for a bit. She showed the officers text messages sent from Kevin's phone, supporting her claim, leading them to conclude that Kevin was merely taking a personal break. Consequently, they decided not to pursue an investigation at that time. However, Kevin's family found this hard to believe. They couldn't imagine him abandoning his children without warning. Determined to reach him, they continued calling and texting, but each time they attempted a call, they received only brief text replies telling them to leave him alone and let Morgan handle the business. The lack of phone conversations, along with the unusually short messages filled with abbreviations, uncharacteristic of Kevin's usual writing style, only heightened their worry. Suspicious, the Mengels alerted the police again, who then initiated a missing persons investigation. Detectives soon discovered that Kevin had allegedly left home on June 15th following an argument with Morgan. Just a week after Kevin's disappearance, the family learned Morgan was seeing another man, Steve Chappelle, a young man 13 years her junior who had recently started working in Kevin's landscaping business. When questioned, Morgan explained that Kevin had been fond of Steve, viewing him almost as a brother, and had asked him to help take care of the children in his absence. She even introduced Steve to her children as Uncle Steve. But suspicions only grew, especially as people saw Morgan and Steve acting affectionately in public, holding hands and lounging together at the apartment pool. Additionally, Steve was frequently seen driving Morgan's truck while out with the children, leaving Kevin's friends and family stunned. Police then brought Steve in for questioning. Under pressure, Steve admitted to having an affair with Morgan, stating she had initiated the relationship by showering him with compliments until he fell in love with her. Steve described intimate encounters in Morgan's truck and at the company workshop but denied that Kevin knew of their affair. During the interview, detectives warned Steve that if anything had happened to Kevin, suspicion would naturally fall on him. Overcome, Steve broke down in tears and refused to answer further questions. Days later, as the investigation progressed, Kathleen received an unexpected request from Morgan to watch the children for a few days, arousing suspicions that Morgan might be planning to flee. On June 24th, Kevin's brother Chris and some friends decided to keep watch outside Morgan's apartment. Early that morning, they saw Steve leaving the apartment with a bag, followed shortly by Morgan, who loaded more bags into a truck before driving off. Notably, the children were not with them. Chris immediately alerted the detectives and began following them. The pair drove to the landscaping business, where one of the detectives was coincidentally present, hoping to uncover any clue to Kevin's whereabouts. When Morgan exited the vehicle, the truck's back was filled with clothing. She walked past the detective in a hurry, but when he tried to speak to her, Steve suddenly sped away in the truck. Confronted, Morgan claimed that Steve might have harmed Kevin, leading the police to take her to the station for further questioning. During the interrogation, Morgan admitted that Steve had expressed his love for her and his willingness to do anything to be with her. When detectives asked if she thought Steve had hurt Kevin, she quickly revealed that Steve had struck Kevin in the back of the head with a shovel. Morgan was then left in the interrogation room while police used phone tracking to try to locate Steve. Though they didn't find him immediately, they uncovered something far more incriminating: an extensive exchange of messages between Steve and Morgan. Realizing these texts might hold clues to Kevin's disappearance, a dedicated team spent hours analyzing the conversations. That same afternoon, they discovered the extent of the chilling plan Morgan and her lover had devised to eliminate Kevin and gain control of the business and children. In one exchange, Morgan had explicitly told Steve that once Kevin was gone, they could take over the company and build a life together as a family. The investigation revealed a premeditated scheme involving poisonous nicotine. Messages showed that on the evening of June 16, 2010, Steve had been in his mother's kitchen, concocting a potent nicotine solution, lethal with just a few drops, after researching its preparation online. Once the poison was ready, Steve added it to Kevin's favorite tea and handed it to Morgan. The next morning, she placed the bottle in Kevin's truck, hoping he would drink it throughout the day. Sure enough, while working, Kevin took a sip to quench his thirst, unaware that Steve was watching him closely. When the tea didn't seem to take effect immediately, and Kevin continued working as usual, the two resorted to their backup plan. Steve texted Morgan, indicating he was ready to act with a shovel in hand, waiting for Kevin to bend down. Around 10:20 a.m., while Kevin was trimming hedges, Steve seized the moment, striking him hard on the head with the shovel. The blow was so forceful that the shovel broke, prompting Steve to grab another and continue the assault until Kevin stopped breathing. Steve messaged Morgan confirming, "It's done," to which she insisted on seeing for herself. Morgan arrived at the workshop, reportedly stepping over her husband's lifeless body, showing no remorse for the man she'd been married to for 13 years. She kissed Steve and took control of the situation, giving him instructions to dispose of the evidence and the body. Together, they wrapped Kevin in a tarp, bound it with rope, and hid his body in an unused garage at the landscaping company. After cleaning up, they left the scene. According to court records, they appeared to take satisfaction in their actions, with Morgan even joking about endorsing the brand of tea they used in their failed poison attempt. 4 days later, Steve transported Kevin's body to a wooded area behind his former high school, where he buried him in a shallow grave he had dug in advance. Meanwhile, Morgan began using Kevin's phone, sending texts to his family, friends, and even herself, attempting to create the illusion that he was still alive and simply taking time away. However, she failed to consider that technology could reveal both phones' locations as the same, a clue that would soon unravel their plan. While still at the police station, Morgan was confronted with the incriminating messages, and she was promptly placed under arrest. By tracking their cell phone locations, authorities found Kevin's burial site shortly afterward. 2 days later, Steve, who had fled to Colorado in Morgan's truck, was apprehended. Although he initially resisted extradition, he eventually agreed to return to Pennsylvania, where he tearfully confessed to everything. On July 18th, a memorial service was held for Kevin, with his family asking for donations to a trust fund for his children instead of flowers. The children were left in the care of Kathleen and her husband, with support from extended family, as they faced the challenge of helping them cope with the tragic loss of their father and the absence of their mother. As the family mourned, they found solace in knowing the perpetrators of Kevin's murder were behind bars and facing justice. During the trial, shocking evidence emerged that revealed Morgan's depravity. From prison, she had sent Steve letters claiming she was pregnant with twins and that he was the father, hoping to manipulate him into taking sole responsibility for the murder. She even sent fake birth certificates, describing the twins in detail, but investigators quickly exposed her lies. Ultimately, Steve cooperated with authorities, becoming the prosecution's key witness at Morgan's trial. He recounted how their affair began, how Morgan persuaded him to participate in the plan to kill Kevin with nicotine poison, and when that failed, to attack Kevin with a shovel. Steve described burying Kevin's body behind his high school and the extensive communication between him and Morgan before, during, and after the murder. Morgan continued to attempt deception, even posting messages on social media to imply Kevin was simply taking time off. However, Steve revealed that she had tried manipulating him from prison by pretending to have given birth to twins, hoping he would take the fall. On February 3, 2012, a twist arose when a judge declared a mistrial due to the testimony of a police sergeant who mentioned an interaction with Morgan's father, implying she was capable of heinous actions. This comment was deemed prejudicial, leading to a new trial. Despite the setback, the Mengel family remained hopeful that justice would prevail for Kevin. The second trial began on February 5, 2013. At her initial hearing, Morgan, now 37, pled guilty to first- and third-degree murder, conspiracy, and possession of a deadly instrument. Sentenced to life without parole and an additional 20 years on probation, Morgan expressed remorse through a statement read by her attorney, acknowledging the void she had left in Kevin's family. On February 11th, Steve Chappelle, age 24, pled guilty to third-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, receiving a sentence of 40 to 80 years in Pennsylvania State Prison. In contrast to Morgan, Steve spoke directly, expressing deep regret for his actions and stating he would never forgive himself. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.